So today I want to talk about independent journalism, why it matters, and what I believe that you might be able to do about it. So I was on a panel discussion last week on Tuesday in Everett. This was one that was hosted by KTTH 770 and host Jason Rantz. And it was about independent journalism. And this is actually a photo right here. I did not mean to cut Victoria Taft out of this photo. This is just one of the first photos somebody sent to me. And this panel discussion was actually hosted by Brandy Cruz from Undivided and included Jonathan Cho of the Discovery Institute and Victoria Taft with PJ Media. Now, I'll link to all their respective websites and media channels down below. I think that's important. But before the panel discussion, we actually had some conversations in the equivalent to a green room that they have at the historic Everett Theater. And we were basically kind of discussing the panel topic, and I just kind of feel compelled to discuss this issue further here, even though I know we just did a panel a few days ago. Now, it's obvious to everyone who's paying attention that an increasingly smaller percentage of the population actually believe anything that they hear in the mainstream media today. And this number just keeps getting worse every year. And the collapse kind of in the general public's trust of the traditional media, I mean, it's epic right now. But why is this happening? Well, for one, people realize that the media is not a neutral observer or reporter on what is happening in their community, our nation, or really anywhere around the world right now. Instead, the traditional media has picked a political narrative and agenda that goes along with it, and they no longer question authority in the way that they once represented themselves as doing. This pretense really is just largely gone. Those days are basically over. The media really once pretended to kind of follow the comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable approach to media, which was a saying that originated in kind of a variety of forms over 100 years ago. And it was kind of modified to some variation of speak truth to power or question authority, which was really more the language of the 1960s. But today, the modern media is mostly just a mouthpiece for whatever government wants you and I to know. The media of today, they shy away from investigating corruption and dishonesty in government. In fact, they come up with every excuse to cover for government that they can find. They essentially repeat the talking points that are provided to them by the public information officers of whatever various government agencies that they cover today. And now let's face it, there are way more public information officers, even just in our local community, than there are journalists. Even if traditional media wants to pretend that they're independent today, they're not. Their very existence has become predicated on their access to official government press conferences and then carefully placed sources inside government that help direct and control the narrative that they report to you. It is rare today to actually find anyone in traditional media that's willing to rock this boat. And unfortunately, this groupthink has accelerated in recent years. And I kind of tend to believe that these media entities will become even more worthless and irrelevant as they get government subsidies and the public continues to search for the truth somewhere, but it's certainly going to be elsewhere. Now, this leads to the key topic of my discussion today, which is independent journalism. We have to find ways to self-organize in our communities in an emergent order sort of manner so that we can begin to report the truth about what we see, experience, and discover in our communities. Because the traditional media, it's largely gone. I mean, those guys aren't going to do this any longer. But this is a messy, chaotic, and kind of unorganized process. And it also doesn't mean that everyone will be successful in this effort. But the crowdsourcing of local stories and activities is kind of how I suspect that we're going to have to start. And you already see this in action on some social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, Facebook when they aren't censoring you, and Nextdoor when they actually allow it. But these are kind of early steps and early days of crowdsourcing the news. I think it's just the beginning. The basic frustration expressed by everyone on the stage last night at the Freedom Series event is kind of this open censorship and shadow banning and silencing of all those who expose the truth. We are censored, we are silenced, we are demonetized or deplatformed because we're exposing the stories that those in power absolutely don't want you to hear, and the media goes along with them. Now, at some point, this will result in kind of this parallel economy of news, I believe. And the more the censorship pressure on us continues to kind of hide the truth, the more likely the truth will find a path to flow somewhere. It's inevitable. If they dam it up, it's like water, and the dam will break. Even totalitarian states like the Soviet Union, they couldn't totally suppress the reality of the world or what the people saw every day, as much as they tried to do so. So I'm probably not telling you anything that you haven't already heard before. But the next question is always going to be, what can you actually do about it? Now, I'm going to make a few suggestions here, and you're welcome to steal my ideas or modify them to fit your skills or interests where you live. And I suspect some of this is self-evident anyway, but we need to speak about it now and start to organize now. That is the best way to be prepared. Now, first, it's far easier to report the truth on the happenings where you live than in kind of distant places where the logistics and on-the-ground resources may just not be available. So I always say focus local. And I say this a lot, and I'm going to repeat it here. About 75% of my audience watching this video right now probably live in Washington State. So I'll focus on Washington State to start, but of course it applies where you live too. You pick a local category of news that you want to know, and maybe it's just crime stats. That's very important. The true crime statistics where you live that your traditional media wants you to ignore or downplay or pretend isn't actually happening when their preferred politician or party is running the show. Focus there. That's a great place to start. Perhaps it is just close reporting about the county commissioners or the city council or the school board, or when the legislature's in session, you can actually report on the happenings in Olympia. I think that's very important. Now, if you're passionate and you're accurate and you're an effective communicator, I believe that you can start to report on what you're seeing and witnessing. It's unlikely anyone will pay you to do this, not at first. However, if you're good at it, if you're solid, you're semi-consistent, and then you're effective, I suspect that this is going to change in the near future. But you need to prove yourself, and you have to start breaking the news that the traditional media is just concealing, ignoring, or just refusing to report. If you do a good job, you will find, I think, others that share your passion. And it seems likely that there will be opportunities that may start to become career paths of some type in the future. But however, I really want to point out, I believe that you have to get out there and do it, prove it, and demonstrate your abilities. Our goals should be to expose the truth and to share the truth widely within our community. If we're effective at doing this, then I believe many of us will discover that we're not alone, and we can find groups of people who can share the effort together. And frankly, that seems likely to become the foundation of independent journalism or whatever that's going to look like tomorrow. Now, I'm happy to help you and your local team of concerned citizens who may want to start down this path. In fact, if your group wants, I will come out and help you with strategies and training to help you get going down this road. I don't want to control you, I don't want to direct you, and I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm just willing to help you avoid the mistakes that I've made, and I've made almost all of them, I think, and personally the ones that I've witnessed recently, and perhaps to give you some ideas and direction that you can use to be most efficient and probably a little bit more effective, at least as you get started. If you want me to help you, go to my website at wethegovern.com and then send me a message, and we can kind of coordinate from there. However, if you feel like you're already heading this direction, then I'd love to see your work and start featuring it on my channel so that I can direct people to your website, your channel, your social media page, and demonstrate your success in your activity. You need to be willing to expose the truth, and you should be the change that you want to see by becoming the media that you wish you had in your community. I have some local examples worth reviewing, and I'm going to link to these and more in the description page below, but let's talk about just a few of them before. Now, first, the Port Townsend Free Press out here has been an excellent source of local news and exposés really about the corruption and incompetence of the Jefferson County kind of political leadership. And their articles are excellent. I encourage you to go there and to read about the recent epic failure of this mega, multi-tens of millions of dollars pool that has been proposed. This is a fiasco. Exposing the truth is all this local group has been doing since 2018, and I think that they'd be a great example for something that might get you inspired. Now, secondly, there's another example that would be the recently organized ontheball509.com, started by Robin Ball in Spokane. And I've linked to some of these before in a few of my earlier videos, some of these stories. This has actually provided excellent source documents and articles exposing the corruption and the embarrassing stories that the local media covers up in the city of Spokane. Now, I loved the recent expose of Lisa Brown, who was the former Department of Commerce director under Jay Inslee, who is currently running for mayor of Spokane. And I also particularly enjoyed their stories of the grant grifting operation called Jules Helping Hands, who received a taxpayer grant and then promptly went to Las Vegas for a wild few days of leadership training, including fancy meals, hotels, and videos that they posted themselves getting spanked by a sexy nurse, all while they handed out old expired cans of food to homeless in Spokane. Now, Jonathan Cho's excellent work that's been featured on Twitter or X as well, you can see it at fixhomelessness.org at the Discovery Institute. Now, please note this is fixhomelessness.org, not .com. So his videos that he records of the truth about Seattle's homeless, drug addiction, and grant grifting crisis, they're amazing. I mean, this includes getting chased by knife and hatchet-wielding and stick-wielding crazies. Now, these are not for the faint of heart, and they expose the ugly truth about Seattle. Now, listen, there are many more than just this. I've just recently been interviewed by Brandy Cruz with her program, The Undivided, which is just another great local resource for Washington State residents. Local talk show hosts like Ari Hoffman on KVI, 570 KVI in Seattle, and Jason Rantz, of course, who hosted and invited us to come on the panel here just recently at 770 KTTH, John Carlson at 570 KVI in the morning, Brian Suits at 770 KTTH in the AM, and many others. These are people that have been doing a great job exposing the truth. But no matter how many there are doing this today, this isn't nearly enough. I mean, for every story you hear, frankly, I believe there's another 50 being ignored and forgotten in our community. I can't keep up with the ones I get, and I doubt you can either. But many of these missed stories, they need to be told. But rather than waiting for someone else to do it, maybe that someone else is actually you. Maybe you can start where you live. Maybe you can demonstrate that you have the skills and ability to do this yourself. And as the inevitable changing tide of journalism begins to assert itself in the community, perhaps you could join with others. And then I think become part of this change that we all need to see. I can't do this for you. I'm going to do my best, and I'll do what I can, but we are stronger as teams of people doing the right thing. Maybe this is a good fit for you, or you might know somebody for whom this would actually be a good fit and worth the effort. And if you think it could be, why not try today? People are really desperate for the truth, and since most people know they won't get it from whatever's left of traditional kind of corporate media, we need to find a solution to provide this information to them. As I always say, the future belongs to those who show up, and perhaps this might be the way for you to start showing up where you live.